So it's one of the biggest, this Shabbat. It is literally called Shabbat Hagadol, the Great Shabbat. It is the Shabbat before Pesach and was given this special designation because of the importance of the approaching festival. A number of scholars have taught that the Shabbat preceding each of the major festivals was originally called Shabbat Hagadol because of the instruction that the community sought and was given by religious authorities respecting the traditional observances of the coming days. The special designation of Shabbat Hagadol has been preserved, though, just now for the Sabbath preceding Passover, likely because the holiday is so full of ritual preparations and the questions about observance and practice were so much more numerous. There's other explanations given for this Shabbat designation, though, as well. The Klein Guide to Religious Jewish Practice teaches us that according to tradition, the 10th day of Nisan in the year of the Exodus was on a Saturday. It was considered a great event, in fact, a miracle, that the Israelites could go and select a lamb for sacrifice and not be bothered by their Egyptian slave masters, who at other times would have stoned them for such actions. Another interpretation suggests that this Shabbat gets its name from the Haftorah that mentions a great day of the Lord on which the Messiah will appear. A more modern explanation suggests that our people used to return home late from the synagogue on Shabbat because of the unusually long sermon that was customary on this day. Thus, the Shabbat seemed great or longer than usual compared to other Sabbaths. So now that I have your attention and we can all settle in for a nice long while, since you're viewing at home, you can go get something to drink or a little snack and come back at your own leisure. And I may still well be talking about all the Passover and making that's indeed a part of Shabbat Hagadol, a really great big Shabbat. And while I do not intend to do that, it is interesting to note that one time long ago, rabbis only preached twice a year, on Shabbat Shuvah and Shabbat Hagadol, using the power of the pulpit to exhort people to repent during the days of awe, and then in the spring to explain the complex laws of Passover. So whether it feels great or not so great, we have arrived at this Shabbat Hagadol, this Sabbath before Passover. For weeks already, we have seen memes on our social media feeds and emails circulating that draw connections between the upcoming holiday and the coronavirus pandemic. I imagine you've also seen them. Attempts to bring a smile to people's faces and help us manage through this terribly difficult time with a bit of humor. There are a number of them even suggesting that Passover is canceled this year. I want to be clear, Passover is not canceled. It will never be, nor will Shabbat ever be. Just like Shabbat comes and goes each and every week, whether or not we observe it, similarly with Pesach and every other holiday. Without question, observing Passover this year feels different, and for many, much harder and even impossible. While the Seder is the most observed Jewish ritual and is inherently a home ritual, for so many of us, we are accustomed to gathering around large tables with extended family and friends. Many of us have never led a Seder or prepared a Seder meal, and the vast majority of us have never celebrated Seder alone in our homes, just ourselves, or with only those who are living in our homes. We are in a uniquely challenging time, a time demanding flexibility and patience, and a time that calls for developing a tolerance for the unknown. And this time most ritually dense observance and most detailed preparation and execution. No wonder the thought of celebrating Passover next week creates anxiety in even the most laid-back Jew. And jumping in the sea of that angst are many who are wanting to help, yearning to do and create to help assuage the uncertainty and feelings of struggle and impossibility. There's been a flurry of activity in Jewish communities and organizations to share resources about Seders and Haggadot and to get Seder meals and matzah to those who cannot get to the stores. I've seen on Facebook posts there are countdowns to Seder and detailed cleaning lists and blog posts about best practices for hosting a Zoom Seder. And I've seen articles about opting out of Pesach entirely this year. No Seder, no matzah, no nothing. I think we can best care for one another by enacting a judgment-free Pesach, sharing the good wishes, the love, the sweetness that is this season's offering without any judgment or expectations of others, clinging to what feels meaningful and strengthening and inspiring to each and every one of us, and letting go of that which feels stressful and hard and rigid. I close tonight by sharing a piece by Rabbi Sue Fendrick that powerfully captures this sentiment. She says, you're allowed to have a shvach Seder. You don't need to set up a multimedia, multi-layered presentation on Zoom. You do not need to cook 17 dishes that remind you of all the family members you're not gathering with. You do not need to do all the cool things that people are suggesting for small Seders. You do not need to go out on your porch at 11 p.m. and sing Chad Gad Ga with your neighbors. You do not need to compile an In These Times themed Haggadah or Seder supplement. You are living through an international pandemic. For all the support you have, for all the jokes people are making, for all the new Torah that's being learned, you are experiencing a collective trauma as an individual within the delineated space of your own home and your own life. You may be managing others' experience of that trauma. You're dealing with challenges you've never faced before. You may feel scared, angry, depressed, or lost. If you want to and can do any of the above for a maximalist Seder night, great. But if you don't want or can't, it is totally fine to cook a modest meal, throw together a Seder plate at the last minute, get up and make salt water when it's time for karpas because you totally forgot to do it before, make decisions on the fly about how much to talk about each step of the Seder and what to read and what not to read. Light the candles. Bless the wine and the holiday, eat the symbols, be together, talk about some things, read some things, be energized, or be tired. Do things you never did before because what an opportunity to have an intimate Seder, or do the minimum. Go to sleep knowing you have fulfilled your obligation. You do not need to make up for the Seder that you are not having or the Seder you wish you could have. Do this year's Seder however that works for you this year. Do your best to keep yourself and your family healthy. Connect with the themes of Passover, getting out of narrow places, celebrating life, gratitude, remembering our obligations to each other, and, of course, to all others. Dayenu. That is more than enough. Shabbat Shalom.